I'm Indy, and once again, this is the Great War on the road. Now, I am here on a rather warm day in Belgium, where we're filming a few episodes in Dixmude, and right now I'm at the Isertoren, the Iser Tower, a monument and museum along the Iser River to the events of the First World War. And with me is Peter Verplancke. Okay, Peter Verplancke, who is the curator, conservator of this private museum. And today we're going to be talking about, well, mostly he is going to be talking about what was going on in occupied Belgium during the 4 years that it was occupied during the First World War. Peter, first of all, thank you very much for allowing us here. And this is a great place. If you guys should definitely come and check it out, especially the roof from the top is amazing. So before we go into the people, you were saying something interesting about the Belgian Army that was different for the Belgian Army than it was for the other armies fighting the First World War. Can you tell them what that was?
Yeah, indeed. Most of Belgium was occupied, but not the whole country. So here we have a small piece that was not occupied, and the problem was all those soldiers, they could not go home. Yeah, like the French or the British, when they were on holiday, they could go home.
The Germans could go home, everybody.
The Germans could go home, yes indeed. So the Belgians, not. They have to look for other solutions, hoping that their family was in France or in Britain, but they could not go to. Indeed. Yeah,
because you had hundreds of thousands of Belgian refugees, of course, going to France and to Britain and stuff. Yeah. Now, but what about those people who remained in Belgium? What would life be like for them? What kind of difficulties did they have? Freedoms did they have?
Yeah. It was full of restrictions. Yeah. Right. When they were trying to express themselves, it was always restricted. I'll give you an example. Yeah. When Germany invaded Belgium, people were showing sometimes their nationalistic feelings, wearing little Belgian symbols.
Aha, okay, like pins and things.
Yeah, indeed. So what happens? Immediately you see a reaction. Restrictions are coming and put on walls saying, you cannot do that.
And what would happen if you continue doing that? What kind of
then you were punished, small punishments, some days in prison.
Okay. Right. Now, did they get more and more of these, or did life get more repressive or less repressive?
No, it went more repressive, just by mentioning all the things that life would make it easier were restricted. Wine. Okay. If you have wine in your cellar, well, you have to say that you have wine in your cellar.
Oh, I could not live on, you know me.
I know you.
They know me. So, okay, wow, that's, wow. And what about travel? Like if you were in Antwerp and you wanted to visit your cousin and...
No, you have to have a reason to go to another place. You have to show your identity cards and ask permission to go to another place. Okay. And that permission was not always given you.
And you couldn't, in many cases, you couldn't just leave. I know you had the whole electrified fence along, towards the Netherlands.
Indeed, you had to stay in Belgium because at the border between Belgium and Holland, there was a fence, an electric fence, that made it impossible to just walk across the border.
And it wasn't just a shock. Many people died. I know I read somewhere there was a number around 2,000, but don't quote me on that. Could they communicate with each other between occupied and unoccupied Belgium in any way?
Well, it was very difficult, but they could by sending postcards, for example.
Postcards?
Postcards or letters from non-occupied Belgium through Holland.
Through Holland, and then of course
they throw the letters over the fence.
Of course. Yeah. Wow. Gosh. Tough times. What about if you were going to resist and you tried what you could do, and of course they said, no, you can't do that, you can't do that. What about like an underground press or something like that?
Of course, when there's a German press says only the good things, the things that people can know, right? But there's underground press like La Libre Belgique.
Which we talked about them this year earlier, La Libre Belgique.
It still exists,
really?
Right? Yeah.
Okay. And it's not underground anymore.
It's not underground anymore. But it was telling people the things that they did not know, the not official news, right? Okay. And it was delivered clandestine all over the country. Of course, the Germans tried to suppress it, but they succeeded to continue editing and printing the newspaper during the war.
Okay. Now, one thing that we were talking about before was the governor of the occupied territory, von Bissing. They started a university, von Bissing University. Now, there was a special reason for that, and it was a divide and conquer thing. Can you tell them about that?
Yeah. Like in other countries, Germany stimulated nationalism in Belgium. Like in Finland, for example, they did as well.
But you had two different populations
yes.
here.
Here we have in the northern part, we have Dutch-speaking people. In the southern part, we have the French-speaking people. So they saying to the Dutch-speaking people, you have you want more rights.
Well, because French was the government language, right? Or
French was the government language,
the university
language if you went to study, but if also military was in court, French speaking. But Dutch speaking people wanted more rights.
Sure.
But when you are in charge, why should you give those rights to someone else, right? So that went slowly, those changes. So when Germany was here, people said, well, to Germany, can we have more rights? Okay. And they stimulated that. That was called the Vlaamenpolitiek.
Okay, and this was really divide and conquer, or divide and pacify.
Of course. They were organizing a university in Ghent. Originally it was French-speaking, but during war they made it a Dutch university.
And so were there groups of the Dutch-speaking people that were even, I guess, I don't know, grateful to the Germans for this, or more on the German side?
Of course.
So it did do a split.
Indeed. It made a split between people who were saying, we want more rights, but we don't want Germany to help us with that. On the other side, you have people saying, we want more rights, and if necessary, well, let's ask Germany. So that's the...
Was there ever violence between these two groups?
Oh, violence, no, but...
Still, there must be discussion.
It's discussion, of course. Then you had the same thing in non-occupied Belgium, right? There, okay, right. Yeah. You had Flemish soldiers saying, why are we fighting, right?
Okay.
When we are dying, we are having tombstones in French. Why can't we have our tombstones in our own language?
It's a pretty good question.
Right? Why are our officers French-speaking?
Yeah.
So they started organizing themselves, and they started by making their tombstones in Dutch.
And then did this trend continue after the war? This accelerated a process that continued until, like, today you have the...
Yeah, those small tombstones, they had an inscription in Dutch.
Okay.
The inscription is AVV VVK. In English, everything for Flanders, Flanders for Christ.
And that's what it says on the top of the monument here.
Yes, this tower is in fact a huge tombstone. Is in fact a tombstone originating from World War I.
From World War I.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for today, but if you are ever in the region of Dixmude, you should totally come to the Yser Tower. It's fascinating, and absolutely the view from the top of the tower is unbelievable to really get an idea of how the battles worked, of where the Yser is, where Newport is. You can see the whole thing. Well, Peter, thank you very much for being with us once again. And if you'd like to see another episode we did with Peter, you can click right here for our special about Belgian uniforms of the First World War. And check out our subreddit, because there's all kinds of cool World War I stuff there. See you next time.